Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start in just a few minutes. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate the early birds who are adding to our Zoom meeting. We're using Zoom today to do this virtual tour. I will tell you, the Zoom room that I have has room for 100 users. So if you are the unlucky 101 user, you're not going to be able to join, but we are going to record the video and we will make it available next week, probably since today's Friday, and share the link out to the group. But I just wanted to let you know up front, we have 100 slots in this particular room, and so we'd love to have that many people with us, but just a heads up. But thank you. We will be starting in about 2 minutes. We want to give everybody time to get online, and it will be recorded. So welcome to Nebraska, and we'll talk to you about our rooms in just a minute or two. All right, well, it is 11 a.m., noon Eastern, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we have people entering into our virtual tour, so I'd like to say welcome, and welcome to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I am Marcia Doherty-Baker, an Assistant Director of Academic Technologies in ITS, which is the Office of Information Technology Services, and I said yes to hosting the virtual tour in March, and so you're seeing our campus during spring break. We can actually get into the classrooms and we don't have to fight the students for the space. So I'd like to say welcome. It looks a little bit quiet, but I can tell you for sure that these rooms are high used spaces. So I'd also like to say a big thank you to everybody who is helping with the virtual tour today. We are using Zoom to provide our tour, and we're going to make the recording available next week. But I enlisted help from our LET team, which is Learning and Emerging Technology. And this team, you'll meet the bulk of them. They'll be in front of the camera. We also have a number of people behind the camera helping out today to make this successful. They are LMS specialists, they're classroom support, they are the IT professionals that really make the learning spaces function as well as they do on our campus. And so thanks to them, we can bring this to you today. University of Nebraska-Lincoln is undergoing some changes, and one of that is how do we provide more collaborative classroom or active learning spaces on campus. So today we have highlighted 4 spaces to show you. Now these are not necessarily brand new buildings. We do a lot of reusing and repurposing of spaces. So we are excited to show that off to you. But what it is it's a collaboration effort, not just IT, but other stakeholders on campus, such as our registrar's office and academic affairs, facilities, space management, and also our colleges and departments who come together to repurpose a space for the best use out there. And that's for our faculty to teach and our students to learn. So today you're going to see very unique spaces that we have done just that. Now, I'm standing in Brace Laboratory, and I am with Brad. I'm going to let him do his introduction. We're going to tell you about this space. So, Brad?
Sure. I'm Brad Sauer. I work for LET. My job in that department is to, once these spaces are built, also a little bit of input when we build them to pick furniture and decide what will work for collaboration really well. And once it is up and running, then we can also provide support for what kind of either equipment or software will work in the space and help the instructor just with their teaching when they need help with that and ask us. So Brace was one of those places that we had a lot of input in early because it was a building that was going to be sort of abandoned. They built a new building for the physical sciences and they moved out. And I wish we had more pictures of it before. Leona's going to show you some in our little transition, but it was not the prettiest building before, let's just say. And they've done a fantastic job redoing this place. And in the room we're in right now, it's mathematics is pretty much, they almost own this room in a way. They have priority over the scheduling. They were changing how they were doing some of their classes to more collaborative style. And it's worked really well for them. Their retention has gone way up, and they've done some really cool things with that. So we had input and worked with them before. You can't tell on this, but there's only one screen in the space. And for collaborative classrooms that we normally develop, we usually have as many as we can fit in a room. They didn't care about that. They wanted this stuff, the whiteboard space back here, because it's math. They do all these problems on the board. And when we walk by during the day, this classroom is just full of people up on the boards. They're not in their seats that often when you walk by, so they do use it a lot. Excuse me. So I think we'll have Larry pan real quick just to give you a shot of the room.
Yeah.
And we'll explain that a little bit as he's doing that. So
So a couple weeks ago, we actually got to meet with the TAs that teach math in this space and ask them what they like about the collaborative learning classroom versus your traditional classroom. And I know the whiteboard was something that they all really appreciated. They loved that the students could go up and work on problems there. As you see, as we're panning through the room, we have smaller pods or tables with 6 chairs where student groups can work together for peer learning. Then they're also very close to a whiteboard so that they can show their problems that they've solved up on the board. It's also a very colorful room. I know as you were looking at Brad and I up front, it looked very white, and it's white because of all the wall talker. We have the white finish up here, but the chairs and the carpet and some of the other things in this room actually add some color to it. We also have a lot of natural light. That is the beauty of this room. It is an old building. It was built in 1905, but we have all of the windows. And I know natural light was a really high on the list item when the TAs were talking to us about being in this space. They're not stuck in a basement. They have windows they can see outside, and they much appreciated that.
Right. And I was part of a tour earlier, I think it was last year, where a math representative was in explaining one of these rooms, and I was kind of waiting to take over the tour group. And someone in the tour group asked the math person, they said, so since you guys aren't located in this building, you're kind of across campus, do your instructors, do they not like having to walk over here for the classes? And the response from the math person was, well, they actually fight over these rooms because they like them so much. So that wasn't a concern at all. But so we took that as a good compliment that we did a decent job in the room. There's also power on each one of these tables, and those are plugged in. So these don't get moved around a lot in this space. Although there are times we have, like in the summer during spring break, we occasionally do training in some of these spaces. So then it's nice to be able to reposition things. So it's really nice to have things on wheels. I can't think much else about this room.
I was going to say that technology in this particular space is kind of low tech, and that there's high flex and high tech spaces because math wanted so much wall access. You will maybe notice that there's outlets and plates up there. Initially, they thought about putting displays in, and then they mixed the idea because they really wanted the students up writing on the board. We do have a single podium.
And some other, well, we're going to show you another room here in just a minute, but on the first floor, we have life sciences, and they have lab spaces down there. So these are kind of octagonal shaped tables, lab tables where they have gas and water at the table. They also have HDMI hookups that connect to screens, and those do have 4 screens in every room down there. And those get used pretty regular as well. So it's you walk in and there's plants and animals and computers, and it's a really interesting space. It's collaborative because it's a lab, and it's based on some designs that were done over in our life sciences area, and they just needed more space, kind of like the math department. And that was why, big reason why this building was reconfigured to be a classroom building.
Now we do have another large collaborative learning classroom on the first floor of Brace. We're not able to show that to you today. We actually have a class going on in there. Some of our staff are doing AMX programmer training, but it seats 80 people, and it has the rectangle tables and the chairs that match in this room, and that's one of those where you can mix and match the space. It has the dual projection so that you can kind of divide the room up in 2 if you really wanted to. But it's used as well for not just math, but other classes on campus.
And that one gets mixed up a lot more. They do reconfigure that room a lot more because of the different classes that are in there.
So, and one of the interesting things we found out this week as we were prepping for this event and some of the other things that are happening in our building is just because you can let people move furniture and maybe lock the rooms and set up equipment and that kind of thing, you need to talk to the other people on campus. So we learned that our facilities group, custodial, at night when they go through, they're unlocking the room and setting it up how it should be. So just something to note as we're talking about collaborative spaces on campus, and it's okay to move the furniture. It seems like there's always somebody who assumes you should put it back. So that's another conversation to have. So, all right, anything else for this room?
I think we're good on this one.
All right.
We want to take questions now. We can do that.
If you have any questions about this particular room or how math is using a collaborative space, by all means, go ahead and enter that into the chat room, and we'll try and answer that to the best of our ability. And if you don't have a question now, that's okay. Go ahead and throw it in there. We're going to leave time at the end for some Q&A. Like I said, we have the 4 different stops. So if you have something to ask, by all means, throw it in there and we'll get to it. So, all right, well, we're going to transition to another room and this space. While we're doing that, Leona, who is doing our production, you'll probably see her popping in and out in between segments. She's going to show you what Brace looks like and give you an idea of before and after in some of the spaces. So she'll show you that, and we'll catch up with Brad in another space.
Brace was built back in 1905, and it had an $8 million renovation done to it. It now looks a little bit like this. They completely redid everything, including the HVAC and everything in the whole building, the electrical, everything had to go. And while they were doing that, they uncovered some wonderful features like this cast iron art above the doorway that they didn't even know was there. All this stuff was renovated and put back in place, and they kept the original design and the look, and the whole building, although it's been completely redone, has this wonderful look of being old-fashioned. The original lighting, the woodwork is still there, so the whole building's been completely renovated. This also includes a auditorium that seats, I believe it's like 186 seats. This auditorium's been completely redone and looks something like this today. So the technology has been integrated in every room and every aspect, and it's now looking pretty awesome and still had the character of the original building. And with that, we're going to go back in and see if Brad's ready to go. So I'll stop sharing here.
Okay. Thanks, Leona. So this is a room that we've designed to be an experimental classroom space, which means we won't keep it the same all the time. We opened this in 2014, and at the moment, the furniture that's in here has been provided by vendors. So we have a good mix. We have about 5 or 6 different styles of chairs in the space, basically a personal desk for students to come in. Everything on here is on wheels except for a few chairs in the back, and we have carpet in here to minimize sound, which works really well. There's 4 screens in the space, and we have some whiteboard in here, but just on 2 walls. So, excuse me. We've had about a dozen faculty use this over the last couple of years, and we have journalism professors, we have professors from digital humanities, from English, even a computer programming class comes in and does teaching here. So we have a pretty good range of people that use it. We do surveys of the classes, both the professor and the students. We ask the students specifically about each of these chairs. So we put a picture in the survey and ask them a bunch of questions about it, like comfort, desks, space, whatever. And we get a pretty good deal of what they like and what they don't like. And well, let me show you one of those real quick. I'll have Larry pan over. I hope that won't get out of range here too much. So this is the chair they basically like the best. And this is the steel case no chair. It's way more comfortable than it looks. It's pretty good. So you can kind of see the desk up here they like a lot. It's got pretty good space on it for a desk that slides out of the way, and it's pretty comfortable. Below, you might not be able to see it on the shop there, but there is kind of a saucer-shaped thing to hold your desk or your backpack if you want. That doesn't get used much. So if you're looking to buy this kind of a chair, I'd recommend just the regular 5-point wheels on the bottom of that. That would work better. Most students just put their book bag right down next to them. They just don't use it. Some of these chairs in the back, you can see they have a lot of cushion on them. And we do use this space for our office meetings once in a while. And our staff fills us up right away. So if you want a good chair, you have to come early. And it's interesting. The students will say they like this better. That's like their favorite chair. But they say use this chair for a classroom. So they're pretty sophisticated in their response on that, which was something I found interesting. So that's kind of it on the chairs. You can kind of see some of the other chairs that are in the space. And then on the rest of the survey, what we ask is what they think of the learning in here. So do they like it compared to a standard classroom? And the responses there are very positive. And when we kind of combine all the classes together, and we do a standard 1 through 5, 5 being, they like it the most, or 1 being they like it the least. It's 90% in the 4 and 5 of responses that they like this space. One of the things that brings the space down on what they like about it is that it's too small. It's a 24-seat room And we don't recommend people bring 24 students in here unless they really want to. We recommend 20 or less because it just gets too crowded, and the students notice that because it's just harder to move things around. So we're a little tight with that. The faculty feel the same way. They really like the space too. And again, the size is really the only negative comment we tend to hear about it. So it is one of our smaller classes. I think it's our smallest collaborative one anywhere. And then on the technology, so we have a kind of standard teaching station up here. This is very similar to the one across the hall. This one does have the touch panel interface. The other one has more of a just button to push the different things, mostly because we have the 4 screens in here. So again, the professor can come in with their laptop and plug in. We do have a Dell computer down here that they can use. Each one of these screens also has an Apple TV plugged into it and mounted in the back. So if they have a Mac, they can just use wireless connect and get on those. And then that makes it really handy because the students can each grab the screen if they want and get together in groups and work around the screen. If they don't have an Apple TV, we do have wall plates below each TV where they can plug in, and we have HDMI hook up there as well, and audio if they need it. So they can plug right in and just sit right next to it with a cable, and we provide those cables for them. We'll probably experiment with Microsoft has a small gadget that does similar things to the Apple TV, and they're only like $40, $50, so we'll probably get those too. So the space will continue to evolve as we go, and we'll try different things based on the survey information we get back to see what students think of it. So I think we're on track here. So
Brad, there's a couple questions in the chat box.
Okay, sure.
What type of podium are you using, if you know?
I don't know.
Manufactured by Spectrum Technology.
There you go. Larry said it's Spectrum Technology, and we can probably get a more specific answer to that before the end of this.
And then are these spaces flex space? Do you or Larry know? Are they flex space?
The furniture is highly programmable. Yes, the individual screens are available, so they can be carved off into separate study units if required, or used as a group study area. They can also be used for standard lecture, but would be really a waste of the space itself. So yes, they are about as flexible a room as you would hope for.
And can you do a little clarification on the Apple TV support?
Sure.
Do they bring their own, or do you supply them?
They have to. They'd have to have their own Mac. So, and a lot of the professors that teach have their own their Mac laptop. So for them, they just come in and use, and I'm forgetting the name Apple uses, but it connects just with the Apple TV easily. And it's open, so anybody can get on. They just have to be on our network, and we'll do that if all our faculty and students are on our network, so that's no problem. And then each TV, when we switch over, which here I can try to do this one real quick. We'll see if our Apple TV is on. There we go. So I don't know if you can see on the screen very well, but that switches to a menu, and it tells them the name of that Apple TV, so they know they're connecting to the proper screen. And then once they connect, the code will come up on the screen, so someone outside, in a different building is on our network, they could, in theory, grab that screen, put whatever they wanted on there. So we have it set up where they have to be able to see that code, they enter code, then it lets them on, and they're ready to go. Those also can be maintained by our enterprise group. We have them registered with them, so when updates happen, they just happen automatically.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. I think we're ready to move on over into the Learning Commons. So if Keith, you want to turn on your microphone over there, we'll move over to the Learning Commons next. Go ahead, Regina.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Regina Flowers. I work for University Libraries, and I am the Adele Coriel Hall Learning Commons Manager. I will just give a warning. This is an active space, so I want to apologize in advance for any sounds you might hear. There have been lots of tours going through today. The space that we are in is the first floor of the North Building of Love Library, And in September 2013, the Board of Regents approved the development of a learning commons as a priority to the campus master plan. Prior to that, this was library staff, so we were following the trend in libraries converting staff space to common space. In just 2 years, in January 2016, we opened the Adele Hall Learning Commons here in Love Library. This space is 29,000 square feet. It is a technology-rich space, 24/7 facility, and we have spaces for collaborative and individual study. The Learning Spaces and Emerging Technology team was heavily involved in the planning and development of the Learning Commons in many different ways. Within this facility, we have the Digital Learning Center that does online assessment. We have a one-button studio, very high connectivity for our patrons using the space. We also have a shared service point. Our Ask Us desk features library, faculty, and staff, as well as Husker Tech. We want this space to be a one-stop shop for any students or faculty using the space. You can get library research help, technology help, material, equipment checkout, all in the same space. The other big major feature of this space is our study room. So that's what we're in front of right here. We have 15 reservable study rooms, 11 that are small size that seat 4, like the one we're standing in front of. We also have 4 large study rooms that seat up to 10. These spaces are highly used. In 2016, in our first full year, we had over 30,000 study room reservations in these spaces. So we do have a reservation policy that we follow, and it follows a 2-2-2 system. So our rooms are available for 2 or more people up to 2 hours a day, and the students can reserve them online up to 2 weeks in advance. We also have walk-up reservations for rooms that are currently available. You can reserve up to an hour. I will let my partner here talk a little bit more about that. So I'll let Keith introduce himself.
All right, thanks, Regina. My name is Keith Derrickson. I am the Academic Technology Support Manager for ITS. As Regina mentioned, we are in front of one of the study rooms here. I'll just give you a quick overview of the technology available in each of the study rooms. We are utilizing AMX control systems across campus, as a matter of fact. Each study room has a keypad below the TV that controls power to the TV as well as source selection. As Regina mentioned, we have walk-up scheduling capability. This panel not only shows if the room is available, but also you can scroll through and see when the room is available throughout the day. We have 3 different wireless connectivity capabilities in these rooms. Each room has Apple TV, Microsoft wireless display adapter, and an AMX product called Enzo. We chose, along with the library's input, to offer all 3. We felt that Apple TV and the Microsoft product are great because they support native implementation from the perspective of products. So, of course, if you're an Apple iOS or macOS user, it's very simple and straightforward to use Apple TV technology, as well as with the Microsoft adapter. A lot of Microsoft and other Android products support that technology natively. The Enzo product from AMX is kind of a catch-all for that last percentage that may not have support for those other technologies. It's a little bit more cumbersome. It requires an app download, but that's a cross-platform app that can be downloaded. So we have all 3 of those technologies available, as well as a hardwired HDMI port. And cables can be checked out from the Ask Us desk if students need those. And we are using RMS, which is an AMX resource management suite. That's the enterprise technology that allows us to pull down the EMS scheduling data down to the rooms. That allows us to provide that walk-up reservation system as well. So to give you kind of a better idea of what we have on the panel, I am going to switch to a little screen share here, where we can kind of give you a better idea of what students see when they come to the room to reserve the spaces. So as you can see, this portion over here is sort of the daily calendar. The users can scroll up and down to see, when the room might be available next. You'll notice the walk-up reservation was used here previously. So the way the walk-up system works, as Regina mentioned, along with their 222 strategy for online reservations, walk-up reservations are allowed up to 1 hour, up to the next meeting. So 1 hour or 15-minute increments up to the next meeting. And as you can see, when the room is in use, it shows the time for when it's booked. And this is actually a button. So when the room is available, it's green. When the room is not available, it's red. And these panels that are mounted on the glass walls also feature indicator lights on the edges. So when you're quickly walking by the room, you'd be able to tell red or green if the room is open or not. Here again is the keypad that's below each display. This is an AMX product called a Masio keypad. It's a freely programmable control, so we have this integrated to our resource management suite that again pulls down that scheduling data. You can see that we have all 4 source selections as well as volume control and of course on-off for the display. At this point, I'm going to turn it back to Regina, who's going to give us a walkthrough of some other photos from the Learning Commons.
Great. So here is actually the exact same study room that we were standing in front of. You can see it in use by students. All of the white panels, we are also using the wall talker, so that is whiteboard surfaces. Here is that shared service point that we talked about. So on the right, we have library staff and faculty, and then on the left, we have Husker Tech. Here is the One Button Studio. I think you'll hear a little bit more information about One Button Studio when you go over to Henslick, because we do have 2 on campus, one of which is here in the Learning Commons. Since our space is 24/7, this studio is available 24 hours a day, and it reserves through our same reservation software for our study rooms.
Yeah, Regina, quick question we have about your One Button Studio. Is it mostly walk-up usage? Do users tend to book in advance, and how does it break down between students and faculty?
Sure. Brad may have some more statistics on the use between faculty and staff. We used to have more walk-up reservations, but we did see some misuse of the studio, so we did push it to online reservations for this space and adjusted our study room availability map so that this room doesn't show as a study room. When all the other rooms were booked and you'd have this one green studio showing, people would come in and use it just as a quiet space to study. So we did some tweaks to our processes there to make sure that this space is being used for video production in here. And yeah, we see quite a bit of high usage. We see classes using this. People are using it for speeches, modern languages. We see using this space for videos as well. All right, so here we have an image showing you this 2-year process. On the left, you can see all of the books that were housed in this space before construction started. And then on the right, you can see one of our study quadrants here in the Learning Commons. So it was quite a significant change in 2 years. All right, here's another study quadrant. This space has real mobile furniture, so all of the chairs are on sleds, and then the tables and task chairs are on wheels, letting students manipulate this space to suit their needs. It's also a space that we use for programming because it's very easy to rearrange. And here is our quiet reading room in the Learning Commons. This has more traditional library furniture for individual study. Again, highly used, highly popular space in the Learning Commons. We have a variety of seating options in this space to accommodate quiet as well as collaborative study.
Okay, with that, we will throw it back to any other questions that you may have for us while we're still here in the Learning Commons, but if not, we'll turn it over to Greg and Marcia, who are over in Mancher Hall to talk about one of our biology labs.
All right. right. Well, Leona, do we have more questions in the chat room?
No, we're caught up, so let's go ahead and we'll go to Marcia.
All right, and thank you so much, everybody who's in the chat room. We're having fun responding to the questions as we can. Yes, the recording will be made available. Next week, we'll have that link for you. We're also going to include the chat room transcript so you can see what the conversation was. And we appreciate your questions. So if we don't get to it today, we will sure follow up. But welcome back. I'm Marcia, and I would like to introduce you to Greg and the space that we're in. So can you tell me your responsibility on the project, who you are, what you're doing at UNL, kind of thing?
Welcome everybody to the University of Nebraska. My name is Greg Carsons. I'm the audiovisual design engineer for this space. And I think not our BRACE project, but for the Learning Commons, that was a lot of fun as well. Where we're at in Mantra Hall is a project that's part of our biology department. It's a 4-story building. We have some pictures to go along with this, but we're in one of the 10 teaching labs that were remodeled a year ago as part of a $45 million project. The building was in fairly desperate need of update. It was originally built in 1963, and we'll show a couple of before pictures of our gross anatomy lab that's also in this floor, part of this project. Where we're at now is in one of the teaching labs, and this is really a trifecta. We had a really good time working with the biology department staff and developing both their goals for the active use of the space from a laboratory perspective. They also wanted to use it for instructional space, but then with the trend of collaborative education moving so fast and forward, we wanted to include that feature set as well. So what you're really seeing is a really combination of all of those different features.
All right, so anyway. Should we show them what the room looks like?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just kind of stepping back out of the frame here a little bit, we have 4 different collaborative spaces that students can group in from 6 to 8 people or less in each of the different laboratory type settings or setups that we have now. There's, as Bob's moving around to the west side of the room here, on your left is the lab space, lab counters and so on. All of the surfaces are chemical resistant, and then there's storage. Of course, you can see above the countertops on the left. And then on the east side's unique feature behind the whiteboards, we have storage space behind there as well. And then as Bob maybe keeps coming around, well, as Bob keeps spinning, this is our instructor's desk. Here, where the faculty have the ability to use either a document camera, bring their own laptop. There's an in-room PC. There's also a digital microscope. So if the faculty is looking at a slide of something very interesting, they can then actually, through their PC, broadcast that to the rest of the room. So one thing we can show then, Bob, if you want to spin back around to the displays, we'll actually show one of the neatest features, I think, of the room, at least from a technology perspective. So if the faculty are in a lab mode, as they're in now, but need to switch to an instructional mode, and they want to use a PC, this is how they do it. With a single click of a button, they now, as the displays are lowered into place, the matrix switch system takes over, and we can display the instructor's technology directly to the students right where they're sitting. They don't have to move. They all have good line of sight.
Greg, we have a question about what kind of camera you're using to record right now.
The camera here in the space that we're showing the view with?
Right.
Oh, ironically, it's just a fairly inexpensive Logitech webcam, USB 2.0 webcam. Yeah. So we do have a matrix system in the room. One of the neat features below each of the displays is a little hard to tell from this distance, but there is an HDMI port input into the system so the groups can work locally where they're at. And if the faculty finds the work that they're doing is worthy of being shared with the rest of the group, they can, through a click on a very simple iPad interface to the system, project that image then to all 4 of the displays simultaneously. So
tell me a little bit about the lifts themselves.
Sure.
I know that they wanted the lift to get the display out of the way so that we don't ruin displays during its experiments at the tables. What did you use to make this happen?
So the lifts were an interesting feature. One of the original designs that the architects were envisioning was more of a sliding, similar to how the whiteboards move back and forth. They thought they could slide them in and out of the way. after having worked with similar technology elsewhere, I offered, looking at something that would lift the units out of the way. The lifts themselves are made by Fairgelly Automation out of Canada. They're about $800 is all they are. They have a full range of almost 54 inches. We're only using right now close to 48 inches of that travel. So we actually modified the lifts by adding some limit switches so that they would only come down as far as we needed them to. So that in the future, if the faculty decide they want them lower, we can actually accommodate that. So that was a fun part of the project.
Yeah, this has been pretty popular. We have lifts like this elsewhere on campus, right? We have them in this building. And
we're going to be using them in our vet diagnostics facility in a similar lab combination training classroom. It's an active training room for our veterinary tech classes on East Campus. So we'll be using those as well. So yeah, it's been becoming very popular. It's a way to dual purpose a space without having to worry about risking the welfare of the electronics. So.
And so in your work with this project to make the collaboration happen, I know faculty were involved in talking about what they could do in the space. The department was really involved in being
actively
able to
yes.
remodel this building and make it something for the 21st century. What were some key takeaways you found working with the different groups?
So our faculty were very well involved in the discussions on how they wanted to use the space, and so we were trying to apply technology. We actually did several beta tests. We brought in one of these lifts all by itself. We set it up in a neighboring building while this space was actually the entire floor was gutted. We actually built out a temporary or a beta system so that they could see it and we could talk and discuss. So that process of having that really intimate discussion with the faculty from the technology perspective was very instrumental in achieving our goal. Our goals, their goals. We wanted to have a successful project and make them happy. They want to be able to have better learning through the use of technology. And we'll talk about our anatomy lab and show some pictures in just a little bit. That space went from having a very similar footprint to what they had to what they have now. Went from having 25 active students on a typical class to having 60, and they feel like they have more productivity because of the integration of technology in the classroom, using products like Clicker for quick quizzes so that they can reinforce the learning knowledge that may have occurred in the previous hour and a half. They take a quick 4 or 5 question test, quiz, and depending on the students' responses, well, maybe they got it or they need to reinforce it a little bit. They can go back over, so they have very good response rates from the student base.
So I know we're going to see some pictures of the anatomy lab, and we're not able to get into the space for our tour today, and it's an awesome space, so we want to show you pictures. Before we do that, you've been holding on to something as well.
Yeah.
You want to mention what this is and why we decided to go with this product in this building?
Sure. So I'm going to kind of squeeze in here just a little bit, and we'll have a little more of a still. This is a Heckler frame with a iPod 3 Air, the mini format. We use this with our AMX technology, using AMX's app to actually control the space. It's worked out very well. What this enables is the faculty to move about the classroom without having to go back to the actual instructor's table if they want to make a change during a group collaboration time. What's unique about this, or not unique rather, is we use the same user interface throughout most all of our general purpose classrooms and our department-owned classrooms, so that if faculty move between, say, their academic teaching area they're used to being in and move to a new building that they're doing a temporary class or whatnot, the learning curve is minimized to mostly about what the inputs in the room are and not about how to select that input and or turn on the display or exit the system. So it really has provided a really simple way for our faculty to move about campus. So we want to move to our slide set then.
Yeah, so
Bob,
we're
if you want to screen share then.
We're going to screen share. We're going to show you some pictures so you can see what this building looks like. And then also our gross anatomy lab. So hang on while we're getting that taken care of. And as we're working on that, do we have any questions in particular about this space? All right, well, let us show you a little bit about...
We do have one question, a couple questions.
Sure.
What's the name of the AMX product?
Well, the room is controlled by an AMX Innova, a DVX 3256, so that's way more in the weeds than most folks probably want to know, but it's the AMX Innova line. They're all-in-one presentation switchers. So hopefully that answered the question.
And then have you had any trouble with iPad controls losing network connectivity?
We initially had some challenges because we have a DHCP reserved IP system. We actually went about setting these spaces masters, the ANOVA itself, onto a fixed IP and seemed to sync up the iPad connection, because we're going over our enterprise Wi-Fi network, of course, to a much more stable platform. When the DHCP reservation server was giving us a little bit of fits, we would lose some connectivity. So by using a fixed IP on that, by programming the DVX, that is, with a fixed IP, it really seems to stabilize the product better. So,
would you recommend using the mini iPad again as a room controller, or would you move away from that?
it's very, the product works very well. It has application specific. The more stable are the hardwired, I would say. If I had to choose, I would choose a hardwired solution. They tend to have more stability. However, if the protocol calls for and makes better use for the faculty, they can do more robust teaching, then I like to support that, I guess, in that regard.
Cool. Any other questions? All right. Well, feel free to keep putting those in the chat room. We're going to show you, we've screen shared some photos of the building. So what you should be able to see right now is Manter Hall. It was built in '63, and I think the architecture probably shows that birth date. But don't look at the outside. The inside's always a little different, right? The inside is new. So Greg, what are we seeing?
All right. So this is the original gross anatomy lab. You can see at best they had room, even though the physical footprint, it's not showing the entire footprint of the room, but for the most part, due to lab space and constraints with just the countertops and everything else they had in there, they could only work with 3 cadavers at a time, approximately 8 or so students per cadaver maximum, so that everyone has a viewing angle. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're at there. This is the new lab. We used some what was storage space where the students are sitting on the left of the room to enable, again, collaborative learning in small groups. The room actually has 16 60-inch monitors in it. 10 of those are for small group workouts, or 10 times 6 being our 60 students. The other 6 monitors, 6 60-inch monitors, we use for what we call affectionately our cadaver cameras. So if you click over there, Bob, this is the actual dissection area within the lab. The overhead cameras there are, and then the displays behind them. So the faculty, the TAs, can actually use those to show to the group to focus in on a particular piece of the specimen that they may want to focus on, like a pacemaker or replacement hardware such as knees and hips and joints and that sort of thing. Next. So again, the touch interface for the space, as we showed before, you'll see this looks very similar to what I showed you a minute ago for the teaching lab we're in now. So the faculty, again, can move about this floor without having to even really think about what it is they're doing. Another close-up shot of the cadaver cameras. This is a product that's actually we built here on campus. The arm itself was came from New Jersey. It's actually a monitor arm that we had a custom Visa plate made for the camera mount, and then we're using a Lumens document camera, some the lighting, the LED lighting. Click forward, everyone. We have lighting control built in. We actually use the cable management area to put a Extron button controller that allows us right at the camera to control the camera's lights, turn them on and off, to switch between the monitor, the desktop monitor. So Bob, one more. So there's just a shot of the lights there. Those are actually aircraft pilot lights. They're LED, so they're low consumption, so we could run some low power wiring to them. Next. These are the actual desktops that can capture, then there's Visa mounted PCs behind the monitors that can capture the images, both video or stills, for playback later for the students for study time later. And then one more. So the product also included some great study space. So when the students are out of class, they have the biology department actually has some really great study space, one more, for the students to work together in groups or as individuals. So anyway, the project was a lot of fun. We've had really good feedback from the faculty and the staff.
And one thing I want to to clarify, this was nominated for an award, right?
Yeah.
So what was that?
So the project as a whole was nominated for Harmon Innovation Awards. It's part of the UB Tech conference, so highly recommend looking into UB Tech. You're part of the University Business Magazine group. The project was awarded for, or was nominated for the Harmon Innovation Awards last year, and we were one of the finalists. So
yeah.
We didn't quite win, but we put a pretty good shot to it and had a lot of fun with that process.
Yeah, all right. So this is our science building. We have great labs, and as you can see, we have an awesome anatomy lab that is doing some really cool things. We appreciate being able to collaborate with the department to make this happen.
Yeah.
Are there any questions on this space before we move to our next one, Leona?
Yeah, there's some people would like some information about the camera and the arm parts if possible. So
okay, we'll provide that in the follow-up. We've got all of the details for those that are interested. I would like to put in a plug though for the team who saw a very expensive thing out in the wild and came home and did it under budget and was able to do how many cameras?
Yeah, so originally we were going to use a med grade, surgical grade camera system, which would have been great. It would have worked. It was about $25,000 a piece, 6 cameras, $150,000. We actually built all 6 of those rigs, including control and mounting and everything, for under $26,000.
Yeah.
So we can provide bill of material and so on for those that might be interested in replicating. We're more than happy to.
Yeah, so that was another good example of how working with the department up front, being able to talk through, we could save them money on the project, get to show off some really neat skills and that kind of thing. So, but yes, we will definitely provide more information about the cameras. They're way cool when we send out the transcript of this and the link. So we are on a schedule to keep this an hour long because we know some people are on their lunch, which we appreciate you muting your chip eating lunch. And we know some other people are probably going to get hungry and want to go to lunch. So we're going to move to our last space, and you're going to see Brad again. He's going to tell you about the Henslick Hub and the unique space that it is on our campus. And then we'll wrap up when that's over. So thank you much. Keep bringing those questions in the chat room, and we'll turn it over to Greg.
okay, thank you, Greg and Marcia. We'll now go over to Brad.
Okay, so this is the Henslick Hub, and this space used to be a gymnasium for a high school. The high school was built in 1953, and it was part of the University Teachers College. It got converted over to Henslick Hall in 1967. So it's been here for a while. It's had a lot of different uses. It used to be an instructional design center, and used to have a big student lab in there. We'll show you some pictures of that in a little bit. Some of the things that we did when we came in here is we really lobbied to get some windows up. We'll show you those that were closed and we couldn't see things before. And we also wanted a nice, beautiful space, which this is. The dean of the college, we worked with her, and she really had a lot of great ideas for that. So it's a very multi-use area. You can kind of see behind me, there's a Husker Tech station, and we do laptop checkout, equipment checkout, so students can check out cameras here. And they can also, during days that aren't spring break days, we do have our help center people here, so our help desk staff are here to help students or faculty with any kind of issues they might be having with their computer at the time. And kind of behind there, it might be hard to see on camera, there's the Pixel Lab, which used to be the old Instructional Design Center. And that does printing for the College of Education and Human Sciences. And it is open to anybody that wants to use it. So anybody on campus can come over and get things printed. And they do a few other jobs like that. They also do some video and some things like that. And again, I'll show you one picture of that later. And you can see we have booths over on one side. Those are very popular. The students really like those. And I'm going to kind of shift position here. Let Larry shift around. And there's a wall over here, and we do a lot of work over there for classrooms. We do have some classes that meet in the evening that use that space. You can kind of see there's 2 monitors over there that we use for that. And right now it's pretty empty because of spring break. They did shoot a podcast here yesterday, and so that's why everything is kind of cleared out there to make room for that. But the furniture gets moved around. Almost everything in here is on wheels, so it makes it really easy. And then on the wall kind of behind us here, there's a one-button studio, and it's just like the one over in the Learning Commons, slightly different design. We put this in almost a year ago. It was spring break last year. We got it finished pretty much. And so that's available too, so it's another location for that. And we do have a few computers. There's about 4 laptop or desktops in here that people can use. They use Active Directory logins, so they can just sit down and use it whenever they want. And then there's also an ink kiosk right here. And that's for printing for students. They can just use their N card. It's the little ID card we issue for them. And they can just come up to the station, swipe a card. They can have a print job waiting that they've done on their computer at home. And they can just activate and it will print to whatever station they activate, and they're ready to go. And we've had a lot of different uses for this. Like I said, we have classes. We use it for meetings, fairs, student fairs, the Science Olympiad, the podcast, like I mentioned. And I think what I'll do now is just switch over to the computer, and I'll show you some shots of what the space looked like before. Okay, so this is a shot of it before, and they were tearing down and just replacing some walls there, but you can kind of see the floor there wasn't very good. It was very patchy. It was a dark space. There weren't any windows. And this is what we turned it into. Much more open floor design. We moved all the Pixel Lab people back into a different corner, away from the doors. Here's an overall shot of it. And like you see, it's pretty drab. The walls are pretty boring. The flooring was really bad. And so this is the new space now. Much more open, welcoming. There's, short of spring break, there are always students in this space. And then this is a shot from the back corner. You can kind of see on the right there, that was the old lab for students. And those were just solid wood desks with computers sitting on them. They couldn't do much. It was all very locked in place, and a lot of cubicles. And it's transformed into this space now. So the cubicles all moved to the back, and much more open floor area there. And then here's a few images. So this is just a standard class over in the area that I was talking about. This is an evening class with about 12 students and just kind of semicircular layout. Here's another one where we have about 25 students in this course, and it's more of a open, kind of working in groups together during the class. Here's a project that a class was working on. They were all writing things up on the whiteboards that are provided. And in the foreground there, you see the two students working on a flat, cubed kind of whiteboard material. And they actually drug that over to the area when they did the group presentations later. And then again, this one is interesting because this is an evening class, like a 3-hour class. And this class had just gone on break. And everybody, not everybody, some went and got drinks or bathroom, but I don't think I've ever seen a standard classroom have that many people stay in the classroom during the break. I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's a very comfortable space. That's one of the things the students really like about it. And this is a professor doing, after a class, there's a large auditorium adjacent to this that used to be like an auditorium for plays for the high school. And so after that class, they come in here and have office hours, and they can help students out. These are just students that, these whiteboards are on wheels too. They move them over and do work at the booths. One of our booths is a whiteboard table, so they can do work right on the table. And these are just a group of students working on some math problems. Even faculty and staff come in here. This is a faculty and a staff person working on a project together at that table. This was the Science Olympiad, and this was done over a weekend. So we got the space, and they kind of used it for a project, or for a headquarters there. And you see some Science Olympiad project there. I have no idea what that is. This is us at a webinar. We had a meeting, and we just used the screen for a webinar. And you can kind of see in the back right there, there's a student just right next to us studying, and the webinar didn't bother them at all. They just kept doing their work. And this is how it gets set up once a week for a podcast that one of the professors, Guy Train, is back there in red. And they excuse me, do this podcast about once a week, and it's on iPads. So you can kind of see the setup there. We have the cameraman shooting a guy with a grad student there going over programs on the iPad, which is attached to the screen there. You see the cars image up there. And there's also another camera shooting that. So then the video people can go in and re-edit those and put picture in picture and just do whatever they want, because they're capturing both guy and the student talking and the screen at the same time. And here's just another close-up shot of that, of them both. And using that wall is kind of a nice, really nice backdrop. And I've watched some of their podcasts, and that works really well. And then this is just kind of a fun one. We had some people worried about putting whiteboard space out and worried about graffiti. And these are some of the worst graffitis I've seen. Cassie is awesome. Have a nice day. Someone drew dragons and castles. And they actually do homework too. See some chemistry over there and some other work. And then the students find creative ways to let us know when we need to replace our markers there too at the bottom. So it's been a really great space for us. And let me get out of the screen sharing here. I'll get back around. So if anybody has any questions, we can take care of that right now.
They were asking, Brad, are there any live streaming with the podcast?
I don't believe Guy does a live streaming. He has a channel on YouTube, and he also has, I believe, something on iTunes U through the university. So he distributes that in various ways. They do a lot of post-production work on that because they'll take sometimes put him picture in picture. So they can't do that live streaming. He's the only podcast I'm aware of here. We have done some live streaming things associated with classes. One thing we did, I don't have a picture of it because I didn't get photo releases. Last semester for a final project, we had, I think it was 9 projectors or screens running in here. There's 3 of them on the wall over here by the booths, and then there's 2 big ones. Then we brought in like 5 others. And we had things projecting on walls for, it was an art class. And each group of students was presenting simultaneously, and it was kind of interesting to do that.
And there's also a question about the type of devices that people are using to display with. Are they all working? Are there any problems with certain kind of devices?
Yeah, I've seen, it's mostly just laptops, and we have adapters here. I have a little kit that is available at the Husker Tech Station that has some adapters in case they don't have HDMI. But anything with standard HDMI, there's cables they can check out there. So people don't have too much trouble with it. And we do have Apple TVs on the 2 large screens, so they can use that if they need to. And we have one of the Apple or Microsoft wireless adapters that can be used for Microsoft products. We've seen students come in here and use the screens for playing video games. We've had, you can use your Apple TV or Apple phone on the Apple TV. Pretty much anything that's people have asked, we've pretty much, I think, been able to accommodate. I don't know of anything someone wanted to do, we weren't able to fix up for them.
Okay, thank you, Brad. I think it's time to move back to Marcia, so we'll do that right now.
All right. Well, I will say, looking at the pictures that Brad showed in the Henslick Hub, I'm a little jealous because if you could see the setup we're using for this, it's nothing compared to what they have over there. So next time, I know where I'm going to go to borrow equipment. So anyhow, a big thank you for joining us on our virtual tour today. We are very excited to show you spaces that our students have access to, that they're using, that our faculty are teaching and doing a little bit of research in, that kind of thing. It's a really cool opportunity to be on this campus and to give you a glimpse of what we have in way of collaborative spaces. We're working very hard to improve our relationships with the other key stakeholders on campus, and I think these projects right here show how we can all come together. The common denominator is making a good space for our faculty to teach and our students to learn. And so we will be having more spaces. Hopefully later this summer, our new College of Business is going to be coming online. That's one of our first brand new big buildings here on campus in a while, so we're all excited to help with that. We've got to kind of sit along and enjoy that show as well. But as we continue to look at collaborative spaces on campus and repurpose and redesign the different classrooms and labs, that's a conversation we're having. What is the appropriate number of collaborative spaces on campus versus traditional classroom spaces? And are there better ways we can use our traditional classroom spaces to improve the area so that the teaching and the learning are something where faculty and staff are really enjoying that, and it's not like, I gotta go to class, but yay, I get to go to class. I will say one of the neat things about all of our projects is as we're adding the soft seating and the huddle spaces, the kind of quiet areas for students to study in, you're seeing a lot more students staying in the buildings. You're seeing students in our learning commons that, it has Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So they're really enjoying the space that we have on campus. We've also increased our Wi-Fi so that you can enjoy our campus on the outside as well. So when the weather gets nice, you can sit outside of the library commons. There's seating out there. It's been landscaped very well, and it's an enjoyable place to be and enjoy the spring or the fall here in Nebraska. So once again, thank you so much for joining us on our virtual tour. We'll make sure that the link is available next week. We'll follow up with more information on the camera, arms, and our anatomy lab. We'll also provide the transcript. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the Learning and Emerging Technologies team who graciously helped with this. When Julie asked, I immediately said yes and then checked with the team, and they've been wonderful to work with. So thank you so much. We appreciate spending the time with you, and I hope you all have a nice Friday.